What up? It's Dramos from the Life as a Gringo podcast. We are back with a brand new season. Now, Life as a Gringo speaks to Latinos who are born or raised here in the States. It's about educating and breaking those generational curses that, man, have been holding us back for far too long. I'm here to discuss the topics that are relevant to all of us and to define what it means to live as our true, authentic self. Listen to Life as a Gringo on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Kick off the football action with BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Simply download the app today to make every game and every play mean more than ever. When you wager at BetMGM, you can also earn BetMGM rewards points that can be redeemed for online bonus credits like bonus bets and bet insurance tokens. Planning a trip to Vegas? You can also convert your BetMGM points into MGM rewards points that you can use towards dining, shows, and hotel rooms at over 20 MGM Resorts properties located on the Las Vegas Strip and nationwide. Play, earn, and enjoy with BetMGM rewards. Please gamble responsibly. BetMGM.com for T's and C's. 21 plus to wager, DC only. New and existing customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. And again, please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins.
What is happening, everybody? Hopefully you're doing great on this fine day, maybe the Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. I don't know, whatever day you're listening to this. Thank you for caring about independent music, punk, hardcore, DIY, all those beautiful subcultures. Because the more and more I live a life that's like, quote unquote normal in regards to, I don't tour actively. Yes, I go to shows and participate in music festivals and that sort of stuff, but just interacting with, normal people and their day-to-day jobs and what have you, and meeting people that have an interest in subculture and have even, participated heavily in it. Like it bonds you so immediately that I can't even, I don't know. It's special. That's all I'm trying to say. So today, speaking of special, I have a guest that frankly, I was terrified to have a discussion with, and I know I shouldn't have been because, realistically, within like 5 minutes of the conversation, he was so charming and disarming that I was like, oh, well, I don't know why I wasn't intimidated by this. But Eugene Robinson, he's the vocalist for a band called Oxbow that has put out many, many records, put out stuff on Ipecac, put out stuff on Hydra Head. I saw them many, many moons ago with ISIS, probably like in 2004 or something like that. And ever since then, Eugene has definitely loomed large in regards to just writing and being an entertainer. And the reason that he came on to this particular pod is the fact that he is releasing a book on Feral House, which is a great independent publisher. And you can dive maybe, a couple months back and you can hear one of the proprietors of Feral House. But his book that I urge you to pre-order, it's called A Walk Across Dirty Water and Straight into Murderer's Row. What a damn title. So it is a memoir. Eugene has led a incredibly eventful life. Not only has he played in Oxbow, but he has just been steeped within the music scene. And we get really nerdy in this conversation. Like he's literally on the back cover of the SSD Power record, the discography that they put out on Tang. And it's just really cool to talk to a dude that not only has lived a life, but has expressed himself in so many different ways. And because of that, he definitely doesn't suffer fools. And so I was kind of nervous that, if I was not coming correct in my questions, that he may just, bat me aside, and not in a mean way, just in a way that's like, man, you didn't do your work. But he didn't do that. He completely leaned in, and it was awesome because of that. So you can email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. You can help the show out for free by going on Apple Podcasts and leaving a rating and or review. Those things definitely help. Same thing can be said about Spotify. It takes up 30 seconds of your day. And I'm pointing at you. I know you listen to the show on a regular basis and you haven't done this. And I would really appreciate appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? So that's all free ways you can help the show. You can also tell friends and family and anybody that you needs to know about the show, because that's the best way for this thing to spread around and get out, sharing on social media, et cetera, et cetera. Just giving you some thought starters, as it were, as people say in meetings, where it's just like, I just want to give you a thought starter. And then meetings go off and, millions of different tangents. But anyways, I was able to go to New England Metal and Hardcore Festival. I know I spoke about it last week, but I'm going to be posting some live episodes here in the next, week or two. And they were all really, really good conversations. So pay attention to that. And I was also in Vegas this past weekend and got to see the iHeartRadio Festival. Yeah, the iHeartRadio Festival. I was going to say Music Awards, but they didn't give out any awards. It's just a really weird experience watching, a hip hop artist like Lil Durk play, and then literally 15 minutes later, Sheryl Crow is playing, and it's just a wild ride because these radio shows are so eclectic. I did get to see Public Enemy, which was cool and awesome because I've never seen Public Enemy, and they, to get a stadium full of people bobbing their head along to 911 as a joke, like that just definitely warms my, anti-establishment heart. But then seeing Fall Out Boy and Foo Fighters, and it's just like you see these bands operating on such like a huge grand level that it's like, damn, this is really cool. And Foo Fighters, I don't need to tell you, they're really good. And watching them live, I was like, oh yeah, Everlong, that's a really good song. And so just these things that are incredibly obvious, but sometimes you need it to be, pushed in your face in order for you to realize that. So anyways, music's great, right, guys? But let's talk to Eugene Robinson. And like I said, go pre-order his book. You can go directly to feralhouse.com and you can find it very easily there. And the name of the memoir is called A Walk Across Dirty Water and Straight into Murderer's Row. I've pre-ordered it. I cannot wait to read it because his books are awesome and he knows how to express himself, and he frankly doesn't pull any punches. And I know that's a total cliche. Oh, this person doesn't pull any punches, but he lets it all hang out, so to speak. So anyways, here is the discussion with Eugene. I became aware of you with your affiliation with Hydrahead, and then subsequently I saw you on tour with ISIS in 2004 at the Glass House in Pomona, California. Oh. And yeah, I know. I'm old, obviously. I mean, I know you're older, but I'm old as well. But the thing, and at that time, I came from the punk and hardcore scene, as I know you did as well. And watching a band like what you guys were doing, it was extremely difficult for me. And I know you take pride in this, where you can categorize what it is that you do. And I realize that's the point, but considering the band's large output and longevity, do you personally think that's why you collectively have, stuck around and not have to worry about anything that exists within the music industry as far as oh yeah, we got to be, the hot thing in the moment or whatever?
Well, yeah, I mean, it really helps to be ignored. And initially I told myself, you have this idea that there's a deadline on some of this stuff, mostly kind of perpetuated by mass media and these crappy commercials they do with a bunch of old losers sitting around going, hey man, we're going to get the band back together. And so you start to think hey, maybe there is a life cycle to this and I should opt out. But the only people who should opt out are the people who have exhausted options, right? So, or Rollins once said, he goes, music has you. You don't have music. If you feel like you are trying to have music and it's not working for you, you should, of course, find something else to do with your time that pleases you more. But the old blues guys played until they died. Of course, they died at 40. It's a different story. But I'm looking at music as art, and if I could just as easily paint a painting which I sometimes do at the age I am. Well, why doesn't it make sense for me to continue? I mean, our music is genre free in any case. I read the reviews like anybody else and see that they kind of batch it with post punk or noise rock, but these are not useful designators for anybody really in a band. I mean, it's useful for people in media because they know what section to put the review in. It's useful for people who have record stores, a few of them that are left, and radio. But in terms of what you listen to and how you listen these days, when most of us listening to, what we listen to being determined by an algorithm that doesn't really give a shit whether it's this or that, maybe. I don't feel any compulsion to be anything other than me, which is really kind of nice. And I know the difference because, Whipping Boy started out as a hardcore band because my aspiration at that point was to be in a hardcore band because I loved the music and that's all I really wanted to do. In the same way that like at one point I jumped up and decided I want to learn how to tango. I didn't invent the tango. It's a piece of a genre activity that I really enjoyed, decided I wanted to do it. So I did it. But at a certain point you start to think, well, I remember having this discussion with Biafra, and which I put it in the memoir, where I said, I was trying to give voice to the fact that it was not artistically satisfying to me to write music to genre versus the music that was in my head. And he was like, well, all of us are trying to do that. And I said, well, then a lot of us are failing. I'm glad that Oxbow, from playing with Peter Brotsman to playing with King Diamond, I don't know of any other bands that could actually do that. So I'm pretty proud that we've been, the latitude that we've that we've garnered for ourselves is coming quite useful. Because both of those are shows I might have gone to even if we weren't playing. So
yeah, absolutely. And to your point too, just the you as a person, like the pursuit of all of the things that you do artistically, creatively, professionally, whatever, like they're all in service of one another. Like what you're saying, just the continued pursuit of being like, well, yeah, like this pleases me. So I am going to do this regardless of, like you said, people paying attention to it or not. Like this is what I need to do.
Well, this is something that Anton LaVey once said to me when I interviewed him for the first time, which is resonated with me over the years. And it's like, though it should be noted that I am, in fact, not a Satanist, but he said that popularity has killed more people than anything. And I started to think, yeah, the reasons why we do things or don't do things, like, why would I not do this or that? Well, I don't want to be embarrassed. Or I remember Gloria Steinem said, for most men, the biggest fear or concern is being embarrassed. For most women, the biggest concern is being killed by those men. So in that instance, I think the fact that I was raised with a lot of women has changed my orientation, where I'm not really worried about being embarrassed, but I do spend a lot of time worrying about being murdered. So.
Right. Right. Which is, at the end of the day, like that's really the sort of base need that most of us kind of walk through life with. Like, well, let's just not get murdered today.
Yeah. Well, you would think so, but based on how some people act, I don't know if that is the case, really,
No, that's true. There are definitely people that, are deserve the comeuppance, which,
Right. Or like Octave Mirbeau said, there's some backs that cry out for the knife, so.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. I'll pull into a little bit more of those threads a little bit later, but, just you as a person, I know you were, a lot of the biographical information of you being born in New York and clearly raised during the time when obviously New York, how it is at this juncture, does not look anything like the New York you were raised in. Mm-hmm. Was it one of those things where you felt like you could interact with the city as you were kind of growing up and, having some autonomy of your own? Were you able to kind of just basically exist like a, wild and free child being like, all right, I'm going to go anywhere and do anything I need to?
As soon as I started to figure out public transportation, right? And I must have been the last time I remember an adult accompanying me to school, I was 9. By the time I was 10, I think I was on the school bus, and then by the time that I was 11, I was taking a bus, a city bus, and that certainly put me. I mean, shit that I would never ever let my kids do now,
Right.
regardless of the fact that they didn't grow up in New York. It just seems crazy to give an 11-year-old a token and go, "Good luck." you know,
Enjoy. Yeah.
Hope you don't die today or get waylaid. So, but I didn't really have a full blown sense of the possibility of New York as this kind of living, breathing organism, probably until I was about 13, and then started taking the subway, and then realized for very little money I could go very far and do things that weren't necessarily in the neighborhood or on the book for what my parents had planned for me.
Right. Exactly. And then you
Of
can
course,
start.
of course, at the age that was also the age at which I was least able to protect myself, so it created a really unpleasant discontinuity. Right.
Right. Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm running into all these places that obviously I shouldn't be, or this person has a problem with me. And so now I need to think of backup, whatever that may mean.
Well, I had started carrying. I at the age of 13, I think that was the point at which I said I will never be without a weapon. And
Sure.
as I sit here now, 220 pounds, Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, wearing nothing but no shirt, no pants,
Yeah.
shorts. I do have a weapon on me. I mean, and I'm in the privacy of my home, but bad things happen to you, and there's a point of resolution that you get to where you think that's never going to happen again. So I think preparation is the key.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've made it clear. I mean, in other places you've spoken about, like, your parents were divorced, and it was like you, your mom, and your stepfather as kind of the family unit. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have. I have. I have. Four sisters. I have four sisters. Two when my mother got remarried, and then two from my father when he got remarried.
Okay, got it. And you, I presume, like, where do you stack up in the age brackets?
The
Like, are
birth
you?
order.
Yeah.
I am the oldest. So
Oh, yeah, you're the first on the scene.
yeah, I was the first. So my mother and father had me, and then my mother and her second husband, my stepfather, waited about 10 years before they had some more kids. And my father, weirdly enough, was on the same sort of schedule.
Right. That is, yeah, it's odd when you can look back and be like, oh, wow, that's kind of weird how that all transpires.
Well, not really. I mean, if you know anything about divorced parents, it was clearly I think probably my father's breakdown was like, oh, okay, that's your move, huh? So,
Totally. Oh, if you could do that, I could do that too, right?
yeah, right. It was too close. It was just too close. It seemed like a weird kind of mimicry to me, but
Yeah. I know you've articulated your exposure to music, a lot of the early touch points of Kiss, and I love the Eddie and the Hot Rods mention that I've
Yep.
seen you throw around, and that introduced you to more of the subculture and different layers that you kind of dive down into. Because of you existing kind of in the ground zero of obviously like punk and hardcore as that stuff started to pop off in your city. What attracted you to, I guess, that subculture and the stuff that was clearly nowhere near the radio or anything that was mainstream at all?
I think the emotional bandwidth, I think, had started to, I mean, it's hard now when you think about what they call black music to imagine that there was a point at which it didn't really have an edge,
Sure.
I mean, James Brown always had an edge, and there were certain types of music that, I mean, you said Teddy Pendergrass, there was a certain edge to it, where you got what I need. But,
Right.
At the age of 13, when the hormones start kicking in, I was looking for, I was like, even at that point, I think I was an edge dweller, and I think I wanted something that just like what people said, you can't listen to, you shouldn't. I mean, that's been an earmark. I remember right after I got to San Francisco, a concert promoter from Baltimore had moved to San Francisco, and she and I were walking along the street. And I go, what the fuck is his house here? What is it? She goes, stop! Don't stop walking! Don't stop! Keep walking! I go, what do you? Whoa! Wait, why is it all black? She goes, oh, this is where Anton LaVey lives. We got, this is bad things will happen to you. I go, get the fuck out. Of course, so I tracked him down and interviewed him, and it became a known associate. After he hadn't done interviews with anybody for about 20 years, somehow, it was me who opened the door to that. So I think that's what it's funny to think about Kiss as being threatening or edgy in any way at all. But you got to remember, in 1975, it most certainly was. And they were from Brooklyn, so
right, totally. I mean, that was blowing people's hair back, and then just the idea, kids in Satan's service. It's like, oh yeah, like this is the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because you have traveled a lot in the, for lack of a better term, like literary and or media community. And like, you've expressed yourself via writing for many years, whether it's magazines or internet, what have you. Did you, start writing like as you were like in high school and everything like that? Or was that something you just started to express yourself,
as soon as I could. I'm planning on a move next year. So I'm kind of collecting my papers and trying to organize stuff. And I found my first query letter to a magazine, and I must have been about 10. And it was to Esquire magazine, and they rejected me, but it was a very personal letter, and somebody actually signed it. So I was like, cool. Yeah, that's cool. Then at 15, a friend of mine had written a book, and we went by Penguin, and they said, come on up, talk to us about the book. And and of course, I was trying to indicate that he shouldn't talk to them about the book, because what he had done was written a book called Debt to Madame Lopez, which was a porno novel at such a time when people actually wrote porno novels. But we were 14 then, 15,
Amazing.
So I always had aspirations to kind of, and I mean, it was the first thing I got paid to do, right? I think I worked at the New York City Jazz Museum when I was 14, maybe that summer. But by the time I got to high school, I was writing for student publications and sometimes getting paid for it. So, that was the first. But I mean, before that, even I was like a theater kid. I think, plays in school and musical theater and being on stage seemed to be sensible, but I didn't believe that there was money attached to it. And it certainly didn't give me the satisfaction that writing did.
Right. Yeah. No, you don't say you're attracted to theater, Eugene. That's it's very odd. I can't see you as a performer, Yeah.
Well, no. But I mean, it's a thing, because people I went to high school with were like, when the fuck did this happen with you on stage? I said, well, before I got here, I was on stage. And after I left here, I was on stage. I didn't do this stuff in high school because I didn't like the theater people, And in fact, I stopped doing it at Stanford because I didn't like the theater people. And one of them was, Andre Brower, who's on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or on that TV show on the side. And he really loved it. It really did a lot of things to him, but I just never believed it. I never believed the people in it, and I never believed it. It didn't feel like there was any there to me, and so it seemed like being really good at hopping on one foot. And so you may be in a situation in life where suddenly what's needed is somebody who can hop on one foot. You're like, fuck, the stars have lined up. I'm that guy who can hop on one foot. But in general, I saw it as being useful for other things, but not a thing in and of itself. And I've done movies now and TV at this point, and it never managed to satisfy me in the same way that writing or music has. So
we have our friends at rockabilly.com, and you know what they're here for. They're here to give you a discount. By using this promo code 100 words or less, gets you 10% off of their entire merchandise offerings. I don't care if you're into the Misfits or Metallica or Slayer or AC/DC, whatever it is that you are into. I know I just named a bunch of metal bands, but like they got classic rock, they got R&B, they got hip hop, they got it all. And they ship it from the Midwest here in the United States. Gets you lickety split. It's all officially licensed stuff. And last time I checked, they got 500,000 plus items. So we're heading into the fall, right? You should probably get yourself a new sweater, maybe a new hoodie. How about a beanie, something to keep you warm over these, winter nights and stuff like that. But Rockabilly, I just love what they do. And, hardcore kids work there. It ticks off all the boxes of the things that I like to support. And in turn, Rockabilia wants to know that you are supporting the show by getting a discount. It works so seamlessly. So go to rockabilia.com, use the promo code 100 words or less. That's the number 100 words or less, 10% off your entire order. Lets them know that you heard about it on the show and you continue to buy it. And basically it's like me giving you free clothes. All right. That's essentially what it is. So please check it out and enjoy shopping. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know those moments in your life where you reach a fork in the road and you're being like, left, right, I don't know. Left is like, palm trees. Right is like forest. They both look like good ideas, but who do I turn to? Do I talk to friends, family? And sometimes you need a third party to be able to help you walk through these monumental decisions in your life. And that is where therapy comes into play. I'm a huge advocate for therapy, and it is a very beneficial thing to me, and I know many of my friends. And that is why I love working with BetterHelp. If you're thinking about giving therapy a try, start here. BetterHelp is amazing because it's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and most importantly, suitable to your schedule. All you do is pop onto their website, fill out a brief questionnaire, and then you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists if the vibe isn't right, and at no additional charge. All of this stuff is incredible. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. So visit betterhelp.com/Ray today to get 10% off your first month. That is a great deal. And I know that I'm saying that because it's an advertisement, but straight up an awesome deal. That's betterhelp.com/Ray and get therapy. It is an amazing thing to get for yourself. So betterhelp.com/Ray for 10% off your first month. It seems like you enjoyed school, for lack of a better term. You continued to pursue it. Or was it?
I hated it.
Okay, you hated it. All right.
I hated it. But keep in mind, I loved what I was learning. Okay. I hated the people I was learning with. I really didn't like the Stanford student body. And people have, anybody who's in earshot knows my long-standing gripe. And in fact, it continues to this day in a weird way because I live like 3 miles from the campus still. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example of my continued gripe. Like, they covered the fight book. They have a whole section for Stanford authors. They covered the fight book, but they couldn't just cover the fight book. And I think the last sentence in the review was like, if you're one of those people who find this stuff entertaining, it's like, they have this idée fixe about themselves as being this upright, upstanding, and somehow I'm a perpetual outsider to this. And it's like, you fucking pieces of shit. You've had 3 presidents in a row of the university who have been drummed out because of weird, weird integrity issues, financial/integrity issues. Don't give me this stuff. It's like America writ small. I hated it. But, by my 3rd year or 4th year, I really started to recognize some value out of the education that I was getting. And I started to find professors that also seemed to see talent, which was why in A Long Slow Screw, I think 2 of the people who I thank were actually Simone DiPiero, who was a professor I had, and Bill Rivers, who has passed on, another professor. And these are both people who are like, I don't know what you're thinking about in terms of lifelong career, but you should make it this. And that was, keep in mind, I didn't go to college like everybody else. I had been, disowned by my father, temporarily disowned by my mother for a couple of those years that I was there, because on account of her collapsing marriage to my stepfather, so it was a lot of isolation, not desolation, isolation. So it actually sort of, in a weird way, meant something to me that Bill Rivers was like, you need to do this. It's not like he said, I'm going to introduce you to people. I wasn't asking for a hand or a handout. He was just like, I don't know what you're thinking, but if you're not thinking this, you're crazy. So boom, that's how I ended up going into editorial.
Right. Yeah. I love that. The as evidenced by the picture of you on the back of the SSD cover and the Power compilation, which it's every time, once I became aware of that, it's like every time I look at that, I'm just like, that's so funny. But the punk and hardcore, broadly speaking, like as you started to, become immersed in it, it was obviously very, white. Just the whole crowd looked exactly the same. And then here you are, where obviously you're taking up your own space from that side of things. Was it one of those things like I presume there were elements of you being like, oh yeah, I'm definitely the only person in the room that looks like this, but I don't care. Or did you encounter some of that pushback that obviously existed at that particular time of people being like, I don't know about this guy. Like, he's, yeah,
no,
that's awesome.
Not even a little bit. I mean, maybe there's a great scene with Ira, who later I became friends with. I saw him at the Ramones show at Great Adventure, which is an amusement park in Jersey, and I think I said to him, to indicate that I was part of the same tribe, I said, like, I said, "Gabba gabba, hey." And he looked at me and goes, "Yeah, push in the bush." I was like, "Oh shit, okay, right." I love that song, "Push in the bush." I just kind of laughed at the time, and later, when he was at a Whipping Boy show at like CB's or something, or we were hanging out, I said, "Hey, Ira, you and I have met before." And he's like, "Really? When?" And I told him the whole story, and he like apologized. He's like, "Hey man, back then we got so much." This was like 79. He goes, "We would get so much shit from normal people." And it's like, yeah, I know, I wasn't wearing any punk rock finery. I was just, actually, I spent the majority of my high school dressed like Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver.
Right.
not accidentally either, quite on purpose, so.
Right. No, that's great. And I think it's one of those things where, that's why so many people found a home within the context of that, early to mid 80s punk.
I feel, given, the presence of swastikas on Sid Vicious and so on, and, reading later reports by some of the other black guys in the scene, like Ivan Julian and so on. And even my friend Pete, who lived 2 blocks from me in Flatbush, whose father used to sing for the Coasters, who was a punk rock guy, the black punk rock guy too. Once he was like really pissed off about something, he says, "Oh, these people, and he probably overheard somebody casually hurling some racial invective or whatever. And I kind of was shocked that it never had happened to me, or it had never dawned on me that this was an issue, because I was already tremendously alienated anyway. So I didn't come for community, and then when I finally found a community, in other words, when punk rock morphed into hardcore, I was, again, I was an outsider. Nobody knew that I was a New Yorker. They just say, "Oh, this is the guy from California." So they were on their better behavior with me, but I've never had that problem anyway. And that could have been, I mean, I was a competitive bodybuilder in high school, so it could have been, I mean, I was in the forward of the book, Harley wrote something, and he said, and I never made this calculation. He said, Eugene stuck out because he was so physically fit, right? Like, he didn't say black, he just said physically fit. And I go, yeah, I guess when, you got guys staggering around high on Dilaudid, a person who shows up who seems physically fit and had muscles might be an anomaly, that superseded whatever race he was. So, I mean, I didn't see anybody who was as physically fit as I was. So I guess it just didn't factor in for me that maybe I should have, but I was never afraid that somebody was going to beat me up. That never happened.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And that attention to, the physicality, like clearly you wrote a book about it. It's like, and you said you were a competitive bodybuilder. How did you get into that? Because, were you playing sports and then you kind of transitioned into that, or what was the intro?
I mean, after my father got divorced, my mother got divorced, he had an apartment up in the Bronx. And so we were doing some kind of custody thing. So I'd go up and hang out with him. And he was a pretty competitive. Had been a phenomenal athlete himself, but it was a pretty competitive type dad. And my stepfather was also super competitive as well. So I remember he had weights in the place, and he was like always kind of goading me to lift them. And I was like, yeah, okay, someday I'll be able. It was really divine. We had one conversation after I turned 19. And he came out to see me, and I said, "What do you want to do?" He goes, "I don't know, whatever you do." I go, "Okay, well, right now I'm going to the gym, so why don't you come with me?" And it was really incredibly satisfying, where I put 315 pounds on the bar. I said, hey, I need you to spot me. He's like, I can't spot you on this. And I just look at him and laugh. I go, just help me get it off the rack. So he gets, he kind of like scared because it's 315 pounds. And I put my hands, not like a normal bench press to the ends. I put it in the center of the bar because I'm doing close grip bench press, which is like nobody does this with 315 pounds. And I'm looking at him as I bang out 8 reps. And then I said, help me guide it back in with you after I finish. And he's like, it was really, he goes, well, I can't do that. And I go, of course you can't. And we take off the weight so he could just do the bar. It's like, I am the animal you created. So I always want, the backs of comic books, and I was big in the comic books. They always had bodybuilders. And I remember the other kids like, ew, look at this nasty. It looks like he's got a heart on his arm. And I always found it super attractive, which of course caused my mom for years to be concerned about my sexual orientation. Because if you remember, that was like a shorthand for either that you were somehow crazy and or gay. I mean, up until like the 80s, like if you wanted to show the character had, sexual proclivities that were not standard, all you did in the background, and there are bunches of movies where you see this, was to put a picture of a bodybuilder. Right? There wasn't like Jim Fixx came out with a book on running, and they kind of revolutionized things for people like, whoa, wait a minute. You can run for fun,
Totally. That's a concept. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And Arnold, of course, changed things his father too. Turns out his father really disliked him initially because he thought that he was gay, because of all the bodybuilding thing. But he really changed things around when in the 70s he came out and said, weightlifting to me is like sex and getting a pump is like coming. And people didn't know shit about weightlifting, but that sold it,
Yeah.
So.
Right. They're like, wait a minute, this physical thing with just, a bunch of sweaty dudes is more than this. It's like, yeah,
exactly. So, I started lifting weights in 71. And then got more serious about it when I got to be about 14. And it wasn't lost on me what it was good for. I mean, I clearly made a connection between muscles and the fact that they provided this great carapace against the world that would desire to hurt me.
Right. No, I love that's and that idea, like the competitive nature, because I think a lot of people look at, the pursuit of the individual sports, whether it's golf, tennis, or whatever, and like they understand generically that there's competition, but like it is cutthroat when you get into those, elite levels. And I'm sure that you experienced some version of that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, in high school, it was Teenage New York Gym Association. So, and I was hardcore. I was a hardcore purist in that regard. Like I was taking crazy, like pituitary gland and adrenal gland, like shit that the FDA clearly didn't sanction. But I didn't start using steroids until I was maybe 30. And I competed straight up until my last competition. I must have been 26, 27. So it wasn't so, the work itself was intense, but I was working out at this place called the Olympia in Ridgewood, which was started by this guy, Al Fives and Andy Bastinto, who started the New York Gym Association. And they had some, top flight bodybuilders coming through there. So I saw what had to go in and, to get the job done. And it stood in my good stead. I hurt my back in college. And so I didn't really lift heavily. Maybe my 3rd and 4th year of college just stopped. And last summer after graduating, I said, this sucks. I need to start lifting again. And it was like a Clockwork Orange, where he talks about the real sad, weepy portion of our tale. Because I remember a guy who I didn't like very much. I was in the gym and I was spotting his roommate, and he looked at me and thought that I was not up to the task. He said, no, Eugene, I'll spot him. And I was like, oh, the humiliation. And I go, there's nothing to do. I can't say I was that guy. No, the only way to do it is to work your way back. So it was great when I ended up finally, at my heaviest, I was probably about 265. And, doing things like close grip benching 315 and putting, deadlift records on the wall, and still into the music. But
but that was another discipline. Yeah.
Yeah. And I stopped competing in bodybuilding just because I did the California Naturals and got blown out of the water by guys who I had come to the conclusion were not at all natural. So, and I was like, well, I'm not clearly, I'm in my late 20s. I'm not gonna be a pro bodybuilder. So I need to move on here. And anyway, I was more interested in actually fighting. So that's something.
Right. That dovetailed into the other thing. Yeah.
Right.
The, much of your time in regards to playing in bands like, Whipping Boy and obviously Oxbow, like, you've toured a lot and touring obviously means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but, especially with the DIY touring circuit, like that's a whole different ballgame. Did you like touring? Like when you first started to do it, I presume your relationship has evolved with it, or has it been pretty consistent?
I liked it. I did it enough. I liked it, but I realized something about it. I realized how people had romanticized it. It was like taking LSD in a lot of regards. Like most people who, before they take LSD, they have this kind of maybe romantic attachment to it, even if it's a dangerous attachment to it, like, oh no, you're going to jump off of a building, you're going to go crazy. And then inevitably, if you take it, there's that point at which after you've consumed it, you go, maybe I shouldn't have taken it. And then of course, it's like when the roller coaster crests and the ride starts and you're like, here I am for 20 hours. Good luck with this, So everybody wants to go on tour, but I quickly kind of, I gleaned that this was going to be one of the harder things that any band, any collection of creative people are going to have to do. So anytime people in bands would say, oh man, I want to do like you, go on tour, I go, it's going to destroy your band. In the same way that people who would come to me and ask me to be a trips doctor, like, oh man, I want you to give me some LSD. I go, nah, I don't think you can handle it. Yeah, no, I really don't think you should. I'm advised. I told my stepfather that he was wanting for me to be his trips doctor. And I was like, you can't, no. And he was like, why? And I go, because your soul is not clean. And he goes, well, you're getting religious on me. I go, I'm not talking about religion. I'm going, all the stuff that you keep from thinking about is going to flood out when you take this stuff. And I don't want to be there when it happens. So I think this is just a life experience that you're either going to have to pursue on your own or do it without me. And I think I've said versions of that to people in bands who think, especially people overseas who want to tour America. And I was like, America will destroy you. Do not do it. You have to be a very strong operating unit for it to be worthwhile and to get anything out of it. But for me, it was great because what was I going to do with my summer? Right. I had no place to go. School kicks you out. I was, again, disowned by both parents. I wasn't going to pay for an apartment for the summer, and living in the van that was not moving in a parking lot seemed to make no sense to me. So, going on the road was the smartest thing I could have done.
Attention BetMGM customers. Have a friend who loves sports as much as you do? Here's a chance for you both to earn a $100 bonus when they sign up through BetMGM's Refer a Friend program. Just sign into your BetMGM account and click on the Refer a Friend program to send your friend a message, inviting them to register a new account in the same state you use BetMGM in. Once your friend signs up and makes a deposit, they'll receive a $100 bonus. And once your friend places a bet with their bonus and the wager is settled, you'll receive a $100 bonus as well. Share the excitement and get a $100 bonus every time you refer a friend to BetMGM. BetMGM.com for T's and C's. 21 plus to wager. Washington, D.C. only. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Reward issued as non-withdrawable bonus. Bonus expires in 30 days. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Our friends at evilgreed.net want me to let you know that they are an incredible solution if you are a band and or record label to work with them. Say you're touring Europe or whatever the case may be, you're doing stuff over there. They're a great partner. But you, the consumer, you can win by shopping on evilgreed.net and using this promo code 100words. They have so many rad label stores, whether it's like Sargent House, Triple B Records. They got, what else they got? I'm just trying to operate off of memory, but they also work with incredible bands like, Deaf Heaven, ISIS, Burning Witch, Pain of Truth. Like, they run the gamut from anything that is, I would deem as heavy and or artistic. That is what they do. And they don't welcome every single label or band on board. They have a very specific point of view, and they are incredibly supportive of bands. And in turn, you can order merch from all of these stores, have it shipped to you. They're based in Berlin, Germany, but do not let that stop you from ordering from them here in the United States. The shipping the shipping rates are very advantageous for us. And you'll just win when you go to evilgreed.net and shop to your heart's content, and then use the promo code 100 words. Trust me in saying that, we're interviewing Eugene from Oxbow right now. They are absolutely in this wheelhouse of what Evil Greed does. So evilgreed.net, 100 words is the promo code, 10% off. And now on with the show. On that idea of the fact, not like you would have classified this as such, but, clearly there are business principles that are attached to, getting paid $100 for a show or whatever. Mm-hmm. Did you, I guess, enjoy that aspect of it in regards to like, oh, I like being able to put the pieces together for us to, do the thing I want to, or was that something that you really kind of, push those responsibilities to either other people or, you begrudgingly accepted it?
No, I did the business for a long time. Because I had a very specific idea of how I wanted it to be done. There's a great documentary on hardcore in Midwest hardcore that I talk about in the memoir. They just put it out like 3 months ago, and somebody said, "Oh, Eugene, have you seen this?" And it's Ian Mackay complaining about me. Now, Ian and I were friends. It's not like, one day I'm at my dorm room and he shows up. He's like, "What are you doing here?" It's like, "Hey, let's hang out." It's like, that's the last person you expect to walk into your room, to knock on the door is Ian. So we were friendly, but at one point they interviewed him about this, and he's thinking about the show. And he says, "Yeah, Whipping Boy was so excited to do the show. They said they would do it for free. But then afterward, Eugene hit me up for $100, which I thought was kind of fucked." And it made me laugh and laugh and laugh. And it's like, hey, you know what? If there's nobody there, I say, it's cool. That's free. Whatever. We're just happy to play. But if it's sold out, bro, you're going to give me some of that fucking money. So people are wondering, oh, what's Eugene going to say? Is he going to deny? I go, fuck no. Of course I extorted money out of him. What would you do? Right. $100, that's a couple of tanks of gas back then. So no, I did the business for a long time until I fired myself. At one point, I realized how thankless it was, and it was making me hate the music and the art to do the business. And I said, for some people, business is an art, but for me, it's a necessary adjunct to what it is we're doing, and it's making me hate what we're doing. So that's when that didn't happen until really Oxbow, and it became more of a collective endeavor at this point. Like, we got a tour coming up. The bass player is handling he's good with numbers. He's handling the books. He's handling the tickets. All I got to do is show up and be a singer. So it's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is. I mean, it's funny too, as this usually happens with most bands for whatever reason. It's like, oh yeah, the singer, like they can handle all the business stuff or whatever. And it's like, sometimes that's not the best solution. And it's like, why does that?
No, for a lot of reasons too, because toward the end, I don't need to get into too many details, but at one point, some guy owed us some money, and I showed up at his place with a gas can, and he's like, fuck you. I'm not, and I just poured the gas all over the entry. I go, there are two ways this can go now. I'm assuming you don't have another exit there. I'm gonna burn you out. I need that fucking money. And he's like, he gave me the money. And I was going to push it and charge him for the gas that I spilled all over from, because I had a gas can spilled all over. But I figured, and he said something interesting to me at the time. He goes, I can't do business with people who do business like you. And I go, doing business with people like you is not business at all. It's robbery. So good. We are finally in agreement. And I go, you know what? I don't need to be getting this exercised over this. I would rather spend my time doing other things. Or if I'm going to extort money out of people, it's got to be more than $100 here or $175 there, so.
Totally. Yeah. It's like, I'm nickel and diming this person for something that it's like, dude, we need at least 10 grand for this.
Yeah. I mean, even back then, this wasn't a huge sum of money. So, but whatever. I mean, I I know guys who would kill you for less. So
that's true. That's true. It's a sliding scale, I guess, for how.
Well, they start to use words that scare people, like principle. It's where in actual fact, what they're saying is it's not the money at all. But I'm not going to be chumped out by you. And if I have to kill you again, it's about being embarrassed versus, being killed. Yep. So
yeah, absolutely. The something I've always admired about your writing as well is and I know this kind of sounds like real basic, the idea of the attention to detail, because people can be very specific about their personal experiences, and then sometimes it is so specific that it's it kind of all removes you from whatever it is that you're obviously being taken on a journey. And so, do you have like that good of a memory? Do you just document a lot of things? Because it seems like you not only enjoy obviously telling stories, but then you do have this detail that is specific, but doesn't remove you from the whatever it is whatever point you're trying to get across.
No, I mean, I've got a pretty good memory for the dramatic. But I'll tell you a story recently that it shook me to my core. And a woman wrote me, and it's a woman I know from the hardcore days, and she is now some like currency trader or some governmental attaché in Hong Kong, like some really hot shit job. And I was like, oh, really nice to talk to you, Becca. Long time. Let's see, Becca. And she goes, do you remember the last time that we saw each other? Right? And you right away, instinctively, that this is not going to be a good conversation, right? Like, and I was like, no. She goes, well, I came to see you on campus. You gave me a big hug. You picked me up. You carried me across campus to where you lived. You threw me on your bed and said, I'll be right back. I go, I don't remember any of that. She goes, I guess not. I go, but now tonally, did something bad happen after that? She goes, yeah. I go, what? She goes, you never came back. And man, oh man, for the life of me, I didn't want to. I said, well, I don't expect that you would have, I don't expect that you would have forgotten something like that. And I really wish I could have remembered something like that. But in this instance, I'm drawing a complete and total blank. She goes, I knew nobody else at Stanford. So it wasn't, I'm not mixing up stories. I go, I remember distinctly complaining most of my time at Stanford about how hard it was to get laid. I can't believe I did that.
Right. It's like the human mind is obviously a very interesting place, and the things that you have maybe such a vivid memory of, and then you're like, oh, that wasn't anything of what the actual reality was. It's crazy.
And even now as I'm recounting the story, I'm like, I'm just not sure. None of that sounds. Whereas on the other hand, a friend of mine says to me, he goes, do you remember what you told me when I showed you my poetry? And I was like, oh God, this is not going to be another good story. And I said, no. He said, you told me to never write poetry again. And I go, no, I didn't say that. Because that actually did not sound like me. And he goes, no, you very distinctly said, you should work on longer form stuff first and don't bother with poetry. I go, that sounds like me. Sounds that. He goes, well, I understood it like you to be saying I should never write poetry. I go, I see.
Yeah, right. It's like that is not the intention of what I meant, but this,
right.
Totally,
but throwing on the bed and then leaving and never coming back, there's not a lot of gray scale there. So totally. Don't know what happened. Happened. She was perfectly attractive to me, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she was under 18. That was the only thing that could have given me pause. But, I don't.
Right.
It just leaving somebody alone in my room like that when I had, firearms around the place. I don't know, but whatever.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of on that same topic, the idea that, people do associate you with, fighting, toughness, like that sort of, masculinity that exists within that community overall. And it seems like it's one of those things where there is that dividing line between people who, turn into, I mean, to a lesser degree, like that jockish behavior where it's just like, I just want to pick on people and, fight people or whatever. And like, you have not adopted that personality of, being like, oh, I can't wait to abuse people.
No.
And how has it, been for you to be able to obviously not cross over to that? Because, it can be easy to just like buy into that, alpha maleness of people that, participate in what you do. So how have you kind of not become sucky as a human being from that side?
Well, because of how I was my upbringing. I mean, I have a huge, my family is very strange where the only men in the family were largely men who married in. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means like every 50 years there was a man, like my Uncle Sammy, who was about 50 years older than me. And then my grandson, who was about 55 years younger than me. But everybody else were men who married in. So you're talking about lots of sisters, lots of cousins, lots of aunts. And I think that my identification, as guys in jiu-jitsu have jokingly, and maybe sometimes not so jokingly, described me that my orientation is very feminine,
Mm-hmm.
And in actual fact, when I think of some of the scuffles I've gotten into, like fist fights or street fights, it's usually with men who I perceived that were I to be a woman, that they would just do the shit that they're trying to pull with me with a certain amount of impunity, and they need to be stopped. Of course, as a high schooler who was lifting weights and, coming into his own vis-a-vis muscles and martial arts, I discovered quickly that the fights that I ended up starting were the ones that pretty typically I lost,
Sure.
So it was really early on that it was never my style anyway. I learned how to do this stuff so that I could argue, right? Because you argue with people and they lose the arguments and they'll punch you in the mouth. Whereas if they're afraid to punch you in the mouth, then you can actually just keep arguing about stuff, whether it's comic books or I was never into sports really, so I was not arguing about sports, but mostly comic books or whatever else,
Mm-hmm.
So it never appealed to me. I think people who do that do it for emotional reasons because they don't feel comfortable with their manhood. And I always felt pretty comfortable with my manness,
Right. You're clear-eyed about that.
or correctly uncomfortable about certain aspects of it. So, I've like one guy, Nate Hall, who's in a great band down American South. And I met him through the guys in Neurosis. And at one point he had a blog or something and he was talking about meeting me. And he goes, accidentally, when I first met Eugene, I think I both stepped on his foot and spilled a drink on him. I was so nervous. And then I was nervous about spilling a drink on him, but he was so cool about it that I was like, oh, this is an alright guy. And I can't even think of the scenario in which I would have said, the fuck you spilling a drink on me for? I would not, never in this life ever would I do something like that, So I just, the horrible aspects of masculinity, I find affect me deeply and appall me enough so that I've never, I've I've not been a saint. That's why, I didn't write the memoir for a long time because
Sure. Statute of limitations.
yeah. Well, and also, there are lots of husbands out there who don't want me to be completely truthful about how I've spent some of my time. But in terms of, the exercise of raw and vulgar power, no, I can't do that. It's ugly.
Yeah, absolutely. The on that idea of the creative pursuits, like we were talking about, originally, you definitely have done a lot of things, like we were talking about bands, writing, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of filter what, kind of lands on your desk and what is interesting to you and, taking whatever roles in media and, like you said, doing movies and whatever, how do you kind of filter through those opportunities? Is it just like,
well, if it's TV or film, it's the money.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I did the Miller Genuine Draft commercial with Gus Van Sant. I love the fact that Gus Van Sant was a director, which people don't know. He's out there directed TV commercials, but the money was extremely helpful. I mean, we're talking over $120,000 for 2 days of work. So that was pretty great.
Yep.
And, Bill Cosby, who I liked him as a fan. Once I worked with him on the worst movie of 1987, Leonard Part 6, I did not like him as a result of the 3 weeks we spent together. I thought he was a piece of shit. The movie was garbage as well. But because it was such a horrible movie, it actually made me about the same amount of money, even though I spent more time on the actual set making it. So that's an easy calculation to make. Again, lining up perfectly with me not thinking that much about acting, right?
Right.
But the other stuff, like a VC guy, I talked to this guy, Ron Conway, at one point, who was one of the early investors for Facebook. And I think I asked him the really, naif question of like, okay, how are you making your decisions? This is a certain amount of gambling. He goes, I don't bet on the technology. I don't know much about technology at all. He said, in actual fact, but I bet on the people. And so I was like, all right. So I kind of like that. Like Jamie Stewart from Juju sought me out. And he didn't tell me until like years into our friendship that the circumstances under which we first met, and it was like largely life-changing for him in a very weird way. He played trumpet in some band that had opened for us, and a band that he was in with his father. And at the end of that show, two things happened. His father, who played in the show with him, said to him, when are you going to get serious about music? I guess versus fucking around like you were tonight with this stupid band called Ibopa. I think that was his implication. And then he had never seen a band like Oxbow before, we're very serious about what we do. So he quit Ibopa, and which is, I think, stood for the Indestructible Beat of Palo Alto. Really terrible name. And then he started doing Juju, and then K Records gave him a bunch of money to do this thing called Chocolate, Tea, and Wine, where he interviews people as they consume chocolate, tea, and wine. And he said, I'd like to interview you, so come on up. And then he told me this story on the show. I was like, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I just love him as a person. So, but there are plenty of people who I don't know. And my proviso is I have to like the music. There's got to be a budget, and if there's no video, I'm not doing it. And I've only gotten burned twice. And one case was this Italian band, and they sent me the mix to listen to. Let us know your thoughts in the mix, and I let them know my thoughts in the mix, and then they released it and didn't put any of my, they just ignored my input. So I was like, it's fucked. And then I met these lunatics who said, listen, I want this thing where you sound like a cross between Phil Anselmo and Axl Rose. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty challenging, but it's still going to be Eugene. And I recorded this whole record for these guys, and they kept pushing me to come hang out with them in Fresno, which is like a real armpity place. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And I recorded 8 songs for them, a whole record, because I really liked what I was doing, and nothing. Never heard from them again. Sent the record in, never heard from them again. The record never came out. And I go, okay, I need to put some guardrails up here. And because that was one instance in which I wasn't voting on the people. It was just a concept that's, how the fuck do you sound like Anselmo and Axl Rose? What an entertaining. I'm going to do my version of it based on, but that's what they really wanted. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get like when you have like this, checklist in your brain of like, okay, if it hits these marks where it's like, it pays money or whatever, then it's like, I'll try this. And then, you do get burned sometimes, but then there are many times where it's like, oh yeah, this does end up, at least creatively fulfilling me or financially fulfilling me.
Yeah. And I don't have any problem saying no, typically if I don't like something, I just say, you don't need me. You don't need me. You guys are fine without me. So, which is really true. I mean, just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not good. It just means I don't think I could add something to that that's going to improve it. So.
Yeah, you don't need me.
Also, something I've started to do, like a couple people like, that was so good. We think you should do all the songs on the record. And I go, that I'm not doing, because I've seen that. I had a friend in a band, this Polish guy's band, and we kind of got into it. We were having so much fun. And so I did vocals on their whole record. And then the reviews came out, and the reviews were pretty much, yep, just makes me miss Oxbow. And I was like, that's kind of shitty. You spent a lot of time on your record. It shouldn't be that. And so, no more full records unless it's another project of mine that I have total control over, like Buñuel.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The two last things I want to hit on was the idea of, writing a memoir. Like clearly there's all that attention to detail. You're, spanning your entire life and hitting on the stories that you want to focus on. But it seems to me, I mean, I've only read a portion of it, but you're very clear-eyed about your approach that in basically all your writing, including this memoir, in my opinion, that you're like, this is not for everybody. Like, this is, and that's fine, but it is for someone. You just have to find them.
Yeah.
And writing a memoir, like that's even more, attached to you as a person because it is your life. Did you have to approach tackling this form in a different way? Or is it basically just kind of like, oh yeah, this is a, just a different version of Fight? Not saying you're rehashing the same stories, but like, do you have to approach it differently?
Yeah, it took me a long time to get comfortable with it. And Adam Parfey had been asking me for years, and it was that line from the NWA song, "Don't quote me, boy, because I ain't said shit." And I'm like, right. I don't have a story. And he's like insisting in more. What was in my head was, I didn't want to have to be truthful about my sexual doings. And then finally Parfey died, and Christina Ward picked up the mantle and said, and she's, look, I'm coming to San Francisco and I'm taking you out to dinner. We're going to talk about this. And I was like, all right, okay. And so we met in North Beach, and she took me out, and she goes, nobody cares about your sex life. I was like, what? So yeah, she's like, okay, and the book can't be, this is not Proust, so why don't you just do from birth to the creation of Oxbow? How's that? And I go, that's cool, because that is, I always mark Oxbow as probably the beginning of when I lost my mind, kind of comedically in a comfortably comedic way, but largely it was sort of really true. And I go, and there was a lot of stuff that happened. There was a lot of stuff that happened before. So I'm writing for an audience of one in this instance. Like I wrote it for, maybe for posterity in a general sense, but I wrote it for Christina. She seemed to think it had value. I'm not convinced necessarily, but I wrote it and I enjoyed it. And it reminded me a lot of writing A Long Slow Screw when I laughed my ass off through large portions of writing it, and then, there were a couple of kind of decision points where I have to write, am I going to be truthful here, or am I going to hurt somebody's feelings? And then in each instant, or no, I guess, am I going to be not truthful here, or am I going to choose to be truthful and hurt somebody's feelings? And I think almost in every instance I chose to hurt somebody's feelings. So I was okay when the pub date got pushed back a few weeks, because it's like, I don't have to deal with angry phone calls, or I guess emails would be more appropriate in this day, because nobody's calling me on the phone really anymore. So right. Yeah, that's appropriate. But it's not mean-spirited. I'm giving the facts. Straight. So,
exactly. Right. The facts from where you sit. So that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
You're, because you have traveled in a lot of the, media landscape, but then also like, Silicon Valley, and like you've interacted with a lot of people that, I personally define as civilians, where it's like they don't have any of the weirdo experiences that people like you and I do in small sweaty rooms and whatnot. But is it one of those things like, do people turn around and be like, oh, are you in that band? Like, do you get recognized within those, civilian ecosystems, or are they, completely unaware of obviously the stuff that you have done previously?
Well, pre-internet, it was easy to have that kind of Clark Kent deal where nobody had any idea of what the shit what are you doing this weekend? I'm gardening, which was true. I like to garden, but it's not what I was doing that weekend. But with the internet, of course, with not too much scratching, it's really easy to find out what I do. And I remember the year, I think I was associate editor at Corporate Computing magazine, and the weekly newspaper did a big page-size feature on Oxbow, and somebody from work came. Not only two people came in. One person came in and was like, oh, shit, and I denied it was me, even though there was a photograph of me in the article wearing the same thing I was wearing as I was denying it. But he understood the point, which is like, this is not going to get me a raise here, and I'm not talking about it. And it hit the same time that my first article for a national publication happened to hit. And that was an article for Hustler magazine. And some guy's like, oh, yo, I saw your piece of the Hustler. I was like, hey, man, hey, this is not going to get me a raise. I don't know if you really want people here knowing that you read Hustler. So he's like, oh, okay. But at this point now, it's just, it's what was weird is that my father, who was a professor, though we've only had one conversation since I turned 20, his students would sometimes seek me out. Like, hey, I've had your father as a professor. I go, okay, great. And then people like my oldest daughter, her boss is a huge Whipping Boy fan, and it just was complete happenstance that this came up in conversation. So every now and then I was at a restaurant with some friends, and some guy say, Eugene? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, man, I heard your voice from across the room. And I go, who's that voice? It's his voice. And I was like, oh man, and of course the guy was a DJ. So he spent much more time listening to me than he ever has seeing me. So he followed my voice over to our table. So it was kind of funny.
And I'm sure it's fun for you to have those experiences where it's like, you don't know what people's introduction point is to you, whether it's your writing, whether it's the fact that they're a fan of Oxbow, or like you said, Whipping Boy. So it's probably fun to be like, I wonder how they know you from.
Yeah, and I usually ask right away, and I was like, hey, how do we know each other? I'm not, I'm no fucking media cheeseball trying to play it off like, oh, hey, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, please tell me how we know each other. So it was weird, right? Like I went to, I was at a slave auction. Okay, right? So it's at a sex club, right? And I am being filleted by my date. And somebody taps me on the shoulder, right? Which is not really what you expect. And I turn around and I was like, oh, hey. And it turns out it was like a guy who I knew from some other like secret society thing that I was in, And I'm like, wow. He goes, Eugene, what are you doing here? And I go, man, that should be pretty obvious. Totally. That should be really obvious. So I start kind of giving him a brief lecture about the nature of secret societies. And he was like, no, I got it. And thankfully, I've never seen him again face to face.
Amazing. Yeah. You're like, you must have missed the memo coming in here, my friend.
Yeah. Those are the last words you want to hear. Hey, Eugene, what are you doing here? It's like, no. So see, this is the kind of stuff I left out of this version of the memoir.
That's good. Yeah. You got to leave stuff for volume 2.
Yeah. Right.
That was that. And what a sweetheart he is, right? I had no reason to be like intimidated or scared. And it was funny because many moons ago, well, actually not that long ago, I was working at iHeartRadio, and we had a partnership with a media company that will not be named because, they ended up committing fraud and all this other stuff. But it was just a, call that I was joining amongst many other people. And then Eugene came on and I was like, you're Eugene from Oxbow. And he was like, yeah. And so it was just really funny. But he's a great dude. And like I said, please pre-order his book on Feral House called A Walk Across Dirty Water and Straight into Murderer's Row. Go do that at feralhouse.com right now. So big shout out to his publicist, Dan, for hooking this up. I do appreciate that. Next week is a really, really good episode with Gina Gleason, who is from the band Baroness, and she joined probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I've loved Baroness forever, and they have a new record that's coming out or that just came out. And I was excited to have this chat because her trajectory is really interesting, where it's like, she goes from playing in like Cirque du Soleil to a metal band. And it's wild because, that's not a common trajectory. Usually people kind of, play in a million bands and then maybe one thing kind of cuts through and then they're able to, put out records and make an impact. But, Gina has done it in a completely different way. And it was awesome to hear her journey. So that's what we got next week. Until then, please be safe, everybody.
Hey, it's Malcolm Gladwell, host of Revisionist History. eBay Motors is here for the ride. Your elbow grease, fresh installs, and a whole lot of love transformed 100,000 miles and a body full of rust into a drive entirely its own. Brake kits, LED headlights, whatever you need, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Hey, hair enthusiasts, picture this. Perfect curls at the push of a button. It's the new Infinity Pro by Conair Curl Secret Ceramic Auto Curler. This tool makes styling effortless, delivering perfect, long-lasting curls every single time. Choose from 3 preset curl types and directions for your desired look and 5 temperature options for all hair types. And don't worry about tangles. Our anti-tangle tech and ceramic barrel keep hair smooth and protected. Hair goes in, curl comes out, just like magic. Get effortless curls with the new Curl Secret by Conair. Available at all major retailers.
Whether your health goals are to increase energy, boost immunity, or age more gracefully, Symbiotic supplements are the most effective in supporting your health needs. Crafted with premium plant-based ingredients, their products ensure your body gets everything it needs and nothing it doesn't for optimal health. Plus, they taste amazing, and their travel pouches make it easy to take on the go. Visit Symbiotica.com and use code IHEART for 15% off. That's CYMBIOTIKA.com. Symbiotic.